Good day, and today we are taking a closer look at what really happened behind closed doors during the Pete Hegseth hearing and why one senator walked away with more questions than answers. If you value clear, independent breakdowns of complex political moments like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel right now so you do not miss any updates.
He actually brought it up in the brief, oddly, which I thought was, just some reiterating his talking points on this. When I was specifically asking him questions about strikes, again shows that this is very performative for him, even in front of a group of senators. What I did learn down there is they don't want to be that transparent with us. There were 6 briefers that used up about 35 to 40 minutes of the hour that we had, and then we had 20 minutes for questions. So of 100 senators in the room, maybe 6 of us got to ask questions of the group, and then it was over, then they left. So, my takeaway from this is I have more questions now than when I walked in. They didn't give very good answers, though we did learn a few things, which in my view makes this entire operation even more questionable.
When you say you have more questions, what are those questions?
Well, I'm not going to get into, specifically what I learned in a classified brief, but there were things that the, Admiral Allen said that leads to even more questions.
Senator, when you say you asked a question and Secretary Hegseth brought up investigation, how exactly?
He didn't say investigation. He his talking points on the video that the 6 of us released and what he thinks about this. And then eventually I replied to him and I said, hey, these are the same views you had in 2016. Very eloquently, I said, like the way he expressed himself in 2016 about this, same issue. And I said, by the way, you were specifically speaking about this president. He didn't really say anything, and he was trying not to answer some of the specific questions that I had about these boat strikes.
Some of you in that video are going to get access to see that edited video.
Yeah, I'll see it tomorrow. Yeah, it should be released, certainly, to every U.S. senator. There is no reason why to pick and choose, like you're on armed services or you're on intel, you get to see this. We're all equal in this job. We represent people all across this country. And it's all of our responsibility to hold this administration, and in this case, the Department of Defense, accountable for their actions. But they have issues. Obviously, they have issues with what is in that video, and that's why they don't want everybody to see it. What we also need is open hearings so the American public can learn about this directly from the people that they employ. The Secretary of Defense, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the admiral in charge of the operation. All those individuals should be in a public hearing, and that video, by the way, should be released publicly. They released all the video that they liked, and then they got to one specific video that they know creates some problems for them, and for that reason they don't want it released.
A few weeks ago that you trust Church Wicker is going to conduct oversight on this. Do you still feel like he will hold hearings?
I think he's going to try to. Yeah, sure.
Do you accept anything about Secretary Hegseth's argument that full unedited videos of the level of classification on the show?
Well, I haven't seen it yet. That's what he claims. But he showed other videos, and very quickly, by the way. They're all about getting views on his Twitter account. It's rather performative. But this operation is not like other operations that they try to compare it to, right? There's no authorization from Congress. It is not like when we went after Al-Qaeda. This is different. And to me, this still feels like this is law enforcement. This is drug interdiction. And we don't want cocaine coming to U.S. shores. Fentanyl, by the way, is a much bigger problem. And if you took the resources that are being applied to this problem in the Caribbean and you put those resources on the southern border at the land ports of entry with technology to detect and interdict fentanyl, that's where you're going to get some good results. Because this operation is costing millions and millions of dollars every single day. Let me just say, those routes through the Caribbean are not to traffic fentanyl. Everybody knows that. They don't even have to. Nobody will even ask that question because everybody understands that these are routes to traffic cocaine predominantly to Western Africa and to Europe.
Senator reached out.
Well, I have tremendous respect for Senator Sheehy. I asked a question to the Coast Guard Admiral, about how many interdictions have they done in the same period of time. I'm not going to tell you what he said, but that is the question I had for him. I think he'd be surprised by the answer.
Has DoD reached out to you at all as part of their investigation?
The last thing I heard from DoD regarding me personally was in 2011 when I retired from the United States and was given the Legion of Merit for my service to this country. So again, yeah, this is all a bunch of bullshit. And the reason why, I think, is because this is just about sending a message to retired service members, active duty service members, government employees. Do not speak out against this president or there will be consequences. So it's a lot bigger than, just dealing with me. And that's why they don't handle this professionally. Like you would expect at some point that DoD would notify me of like an investigation, but they haven't. And they haven't because I think what they really care about is the public message. They're going after me, a U.S. Senator, for something I said that was lawful. It was the truth. It was something people are trained on. It was something that Pete Hegseth said in 2016 multiple times. And in his case, specifically about this president and his concerns. They don't want other people saying these kind of things. So they're trying to shut people up. But in this case, they picked the wrong guy, because I'm not going to shut up about this. I'm going to continue to do my job. I'm going to stick up for our Constitution. I mean, I think Pete Hegseth is a guy who goes to work every day to try to figure out how does he please the president. That's a recipe for some major problems.
All right, thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Appreciate it.
What you just heard may have sounded like frustration, but it points to something much deeper. According to the senator, the hearing itself felt less like a serious effort to inform lawmakers and more like a carefully staged performance. Instead of directly addressing pointed questions about military strikes and decision-making, Hegseth reportedly repeated familiar talking points, even inserting them into a classified briefing where senators were hoping for clarity, not campaign-style messaging. To understand why this matters, you need to know how these briefings usually work. When senators attend classified sessions, especially on military operations, the expectation is candor, specificity, and accountability. These meetings are meant to fill in the gaps that public hearings cannot. But in this case, the structure of the briefing raised immediate red flags. 6 separate briefers took up roughly 40 minutes of a 1-hour session. That left only about 20 minutes for questions from nearly 100 senators in the room. In practical terms, that meant only about 6 lawmakers were able to ask anything at all before the briefing abruptly ended. If this kind of behind-the-scenes access matters to you, subscribe to the channel so you can keep learning what does not always make the headlines. The result of that imbalance was predictable. Instead of walking away informed, several senators walked away more concerned. One of them summed it up clearly, saying that he had more questions after the briefing than before he walked in. That is a striking statement, because classified briefings are supposed to reduce uncertainty, not increase it. When lawmakers leave feeling less confident about what the government is doing, that signals a transparency problem. The senator was careful not to reveal classified details, but he did confirm that comments made by Admiral Allen during the session raised additional concerns. Those remarks, while not publicly disclosed, apparently introduced new contradictions or unresolved issues that lawmakers were not given enough time to explore. That lack of follow-up is critical because oversight only works when questions are allowed to be fully asked and honestly answered. If you want more reporting that explains how power actually operates in Washington, hit subscribe now and stay with us. There was also confusion about the nature of the questions being asked. At one point, another senator pressed for clarification, asking whether the discussion involved an investigation. The response was telling. There was no investigation mentioned, just repeated references to a public video released by 6 lawmakers and Hegseth's opinions about it. That exchange reinforced the sense that this was less about accountability and more about controlling the narrative. This is where viewers can learn something important. When officials rely on rehearsed messaging in spaces designed for scrutiny, it often means they are not ready or not willing to engage with the full consequences of their actions. Oversight becomes symbolic rather than substantive, and senators are left trying to piece together the truth from fragments. Before we continue covering stories like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can stay informed and support in-depth political reporting. In the end, the takeaway from this hearing is not just about Pete Hegseth or one classified briefing. It is about a broader pattern where lawmakers are given limited access, limited time, and limited transparency on decisions that carry enormous consequences. When even senators say the operation now looks more questionable than before, that is a signal the public should pay attention to. We will continue to break these moments down, explain what they mean, and connect the dots so you're not just watching the news, you're understanding it. Subscribe now, stay engaged, and we will see you in the next report.